Welcome everybody to Mama Semaj's Poetry is the Pizza of the World. Yes, that's what I said. I said poetry is the pizza of the world. And how could that be? Well, we're going to find out what poetry has to do with pizza. But first, let's talk about what's a poem. So if I ask you, Keisha, what's a poem? I know you know, but it's really sometimes it's hard to describe. So I'm going to call on everybody to say what they think a poem is. So let me hear it. Yes, it's a type of language. It's a type of writing. Yes, it's very specialized. Yes, very good. That's excellent. And what are some other characteristics of poetry? You're correct. It expresses feelings. Poetry often expresses feelings. And it's a particular type of vivid, imaginative language that helps you to feel. And you know, it has a certain sound, and a certain texture to it, to the ear. And there are so many different types of poems. One of the characteristics of poems is that it condenses things. Oh, you hear that? That's my little bell. That tells me to tell you that's an important word. And I want you to take that word and write it down and commit it to memory. So poetry condenses. What it does, it shrinks. It shrinks meaning into a kernel. So sometimes writers might write a great deal and a poet will come around and look at it and read it and say, ooh, I'm going to make a poem. I'm going to capture the meaning of it in shortened, condensed terms. And that's what poets do. So that's really exciting. Remember, poetry is pizza. And so how can poetry be pizza? And how can pizza be poetry? Because that's a metaphor. And we're going to talk about metaphors in a moment. What is a metaphor? Oh, anytime you give an equivalency like poetry is pizza, the equivalency is between poetry and pizza. And so that creates a metaphor. And what type of language is that? Oh, I couldn't hear you. You're right. Exactly. That's the type of language that is. Very good. I want you to share that with everybody. All right. Good. Yes. Now, everybody doesn't like all types of pizza. Some people don't like pizza at all. Some people don't like poetry. But I tell you what, I bet those people who don't like pizza or poetry have never had Mama Semaj's pizza. And they probably never listened to my Mama Semaj's poems. And I'm sure they never had your pizza, because I know it's good, or had your poems, because you're going to write some great poems after this. Yes, we're getting you ready, because we're talking about some foundations today. And look at one of the foundations I have. Oh, you see what that is? Yes, it is the dough. The crust before it's baked. So poems have that too. That dough, that crust before it's baked. We are going to call that the theme. Poems have themes. They have foundations. And that's an element of poetry. Before we go any further, I'm going to put my cross down and I'm going to ask you, I heard somebody whispering. They were talking about what type of language is poetry. Is it literal or is it figurative? Good question. You see this glass of water? I can hardly resist. Delicious. All right. If I say, in this glass of water, it is filled with molecules of water, which consist of 2 atoms of hydrogen to 1 atom of oxygen, which creates a molecule of water. That would be literal language. In other words, it's actual facts, baby. You got it. Okay. Actual facts. Here we go. But poetry doesn't deal with actual facts. type literature. It's not literal. Poetry comes under the umbrella of figurative literature. And what is figurative literature? See, you're supposed to, figurative literature, don't forget. Did you take a note? Take a note. Figurative speech, figurative literature. Figurative literature has the word figure in it. Yes, because that's important. Because what it does is compares one with another. One person, one object, or one thing, one figure, one idea with another. It's a comparison of figures. So, if, back to my water, you remember we had actual facts, that was literal language. Figurative language would be more like, water is life. Yes, and that's called a metaphor. And why is it a metaphor? Because there's this assumption of equality. Water is a figure. It's being compared to life, which is another figure. And now they're being compared as equal. They're like almost equal. Water is life. That's a metaphor. It's a figure of speech. F-O-S. F-O-S. Figure of speech. We're not going to forget those. We're going to remember those forever and ever. Figures of speech are important to poets because we use them to create a good pizza. Another figure of speech is a simile. And the word simile makes me think of similar. And when we're using similes, which come under figures of speech, we use like or the word as. And so when we compare, if we use the word like or the word as, we have a simile. Now, another element of poetry, or the ingredients of the pizza, we're going to go through 3 of them today, might be, I introduced you to one, the foundation, the dough. The dough of the pizza is like the theme of the poem. It is the foundation. On it, the poem is built. If you don't know what you're writing about, oh boy, what are you going to write? Now, it is true. Sometimes I start out writing and I end up writing about something else. But when I get finished, that poem I better know what that poem is when I read it. And if it doesn't make any sense to me, guess what? It probably won't make any sense to you. So that's why this is very important. This dough, this crust is the theme. It is what all the poem is built upon. It is what the pizza is built upon. Look, you don't have good dough, you don't have good pizza, right? Right. All right. So an element of poetry is the theme, the foundation. Another element of poetry is the mood. Well, are you going to be sad? Is the poem going to be happy? Is the poem going to be contemplative? Are you going to be thinking? Methodical? There it is again. Contemplative, thinking, methodical. You know what I just did? I just made a little synonym stream. What's a synonym stream? Synonyms are words that are similar, but they have nuanced meanings, so they're different. They're used in different places. But I said methodical, contemplative, and what's the other one? Thinking, So you put that together, don't forget, put that as a synonym stream. We're back to our mood. What is the mood going to be? And that is the sauce of the pizza. Oh, yes, so I'm going to be pouring my sauce onto my pizza because I'm going to create a mood. Is this sauce going to be spicy? Is it? If it is spicy, I'm going to put some hot peppers on it. Ooh, all here. And I'll make this hot like jalapeno peppers. Is my sauce going to be spicy? I can also put some onions in here. Sharp to make it spicy. Is my mood going to be sweet and enduring? Well, chunks of pineapple. What if I'm just going to be contemplative, thoughtful, brooding, or brooding? What would we put on then? Maybe mushrooms, kind of earthy. Now, some people like anchovy, some people don't. But if you really want to change the mood of something, and you want to make it, something exaggerated, anchovies will do it, they tell me. And so will olives. So I might put olives to really change the mood and make it a very distinct flavor for my poem. Bloop. Now, one of the elements of poetry is repetition. We poets often repeat things over and over and over again for emphasis. And when you're making a pizza, you know what gets repeated over and over and over again? People like Monterey Jack, people like cheddar, people like mozzarella. That's the cheese. And that's repetition too. So when poets use repetition, they use the cheese, they put it on the poem, put it on the poem, or they put it on the pizza. And why do they do it? For emphasis. And that's another element of poetry. So we've got the dough, which is the crust, which is the theme of the poem, which everything is built upon. It's the foundation. It's what you're trying to say. And then you have the mood, which is the sauce. Are you spicy? Are you happy? Are you sad? And then there's the repetition, repeating over and over again. Or sometimes you don't want that much cheese, right? So you just want to put a little bit and then a little bit more. But repetition is very important to poetry. So, poetry is pizza of the world. And I'm telling you, pizza wishes it was as delicious as the most delicious poem. And when I say poetry is the pizza of the world, that's a what? Metaphor, because I'm comparing poetry and pizza. Yes, and one language is figurative and the other is literal. Let's look at some more of these. I have an assistant with me today, Teddy. Teddy has a print coat. And so Teddy's print coat, instead of having fur, I could say something like, Teddy's coat is like the forest, because it has flowers all on it. And I use the word like, so it means it's similar to the forest. And if it's similar to the forest, I'm using a figure of speech because I'm doing a comparison between Teddy's coat and the forest. And I'm using a comparison, but I'm not saying it is the forest. No, I'm saying it's like the forest. Yes, I'm using the word like, and so I'm saying it's similar, and so I'm saying it's a simile, which is a figure of speech. False. Thank you, Teddy, for your assistance. It's been wonderful, really. And you have too. Just absolutely fantastic. Jamal has hair like lamb's wool. So does Mama Semaj. All right, now, that would be what? Is that a metaphor or a simile? Or if I say Jamal's hair is as soft as lamb's wool. As is also an indicator that you are comparing with a simile. As and like. As and like. As and like. Similes. Alrighty. So those are great examples that I want you to remember. These all fall under figures of speech. Lovely. Here's my last one. I really like this one. She fought as fiercely as a lion. So I'm comparing her fight, to that of a lion. How am I doing it? So we know it's figures of speech because it's a comparison, right? But is it an equality kind of type of comparison? Or am I saying she fought like a lion? I said she fought as fiercely as a lion. That's a simile because I used the word as. Similar. Now, if I say she was a lion in the fight for justice, that means she was a lion, which gives us an equality that I'm equating her with a lion. I'm not saying she's similar to a lion. No. She surpasses that. She is a lion. All right? That's a metaphor. Are you writing these things? Are you getting these things? I know you are. I can't wait for you to create your list of similes and metaphors and then be able to pluck them and put them into your poems and make your poems powerful. That's what poetry does. And it also can be subtle. That's another characteristic of poetry. Yes, exciting. Oh, let's talk about another figure of speech. Hyperbole. It's important that I say it really big and long so that you remember what it is. Hyperbole means exaggeration. It means overblown. If I say, he grew tall as an oak tree. Did he really? Come on. Are those actual facts? Yeah. That's what we call figurative language, because you're comparing an oak tree with the he, or with the boy, or with the girl. So it's called hyperbole when you do that kind of comparison and it's just so exaggerated and it's so overblown. How about this one? They were quiet as a molecule. Now, we talked about molecules when we were talking about this water. Let's listen for a molecule. Pretty quiet, huh? So that's exaggerated language. That's hyperbole. So it's a figure of speech because it compares the molecule and the quiet. Okay? So to have a figure of speech, that's what they do. And there's different ways they do it. They do it through simile. They do it through metaphor. They do it through hyperbole, which means exaggeration, right? This is one of my favorite figures of speech, and this is the last one we're going to cover today. You see this onion? Yeah, I cut it open. And guess what? Sting in my eyes. The onion is crying. Now, can we talk? Do onions cry? Do they really? Well, that's called personification. Say it with me. Personification. Personification. Personification is when you attribute, when you give characteristics that are human to non-human objects. Like an onion. The onion is crying. Do onions cry? So personification. Okay, remember that word. Personification. Personification. 6 syllables. I love it. All right, so human qualities. Here's another one. My heart sings. Does your heart really sing? You're filled with joy. But does your heart, that's an organ inside of your body, does it really sing? Can you hear it saying, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti? No, does your heart sing? I'm attributing human characteristics to a non-human thing. Okay, the heart isn't a full human. Okay, how about another one? The water stood up and walked down the street. Well, that's kind of fun, but that's what we call personification. Alrighty? And that is a figure of speech, because what are the things we're comparing? We're comparing the movement of the water, and we're saying it's walking, and that's the human characteristic. And that's the fun of using personification. You can put it on. You can have everything talking, walking, doing all kinds of human things. They can go to meetings. They can just do whatever they want to do, because you're the poet and you can put this personification on them, right? That's good. That's part of your poem. Now let's do a review. Let's think about our pizza. Don't forget to bake this pizza. Don't forget to make your poem and know how poetry is a pizza. First, we have our foundation, which is the crust of the pizza. Secondly, we have our sauce, which is the mood of the poem. Spicy, tart, pensive, all these things, right? Then we have our cheese. A little bit or a lot, all different types if you like. That's repetition. Then we have our figures of speech. And we know what that is because of the word figures, the difference between literal language and figurative language. Literal language, actual fact, baby. Figurative language, there's a comparison between things and objects and figures. That's why it's called figurative language. And we're going to look at the types of figurative language that we covered today. We covered metaphor. That's kind of like an equalizer. We covered simile. That means it's more or less similar with the use of with the use of like and as. We also covered personification. We just talked about that, giving human characteristics to non-human things. Personification. And we talked about hyperbole. Hyperbole is exaggeration in one way or another. It's exaggeration. And this has been a lot of fun. I've made my pizza. Now you know how poetry is pizza. And I'm going to bake this pizza. And I'm going to make this poem. And I expect you to do as well. Do you have any questions for Mama Semaj? Okay. It's going to be in the making of the poem and in the baking of the pizza. I had so much fun with you here. We're going to have a ball game. You take great care. I love you. Peace and blessings. Beautiful, beautiful people.